All right. Well, I'm not sure if can you hear me? Let me just start by saying that, this time of the year is probably the most exciting time of the year. And everyone says that football season kicks off with the media days. In reality, we started last week, with about 300 officials between the Big Ten, Mid-American Conference, and Valley came into Chicago. And we had from last Wednesday through Saturday, we had our annual clinic. But the reality is, I give the officials about 2 to 3 weeks off after the national championship. First week in February, I bring all the Big Ten head referees in and sometimes the replay people, and that's when the season starts for us, early February. And then from there, every other week, there's Zoom calls, there's training sessions, there's camps, there's clinics. We get into spring football in that March, April timeframe, maybe a little bit leaks into May, and after that, maybe a few weeks off, but they're still going to camps and clinics in June. And so it has changed since I was working in the Big Ten. Now this is a year-round profession, if you will. It's a craft that they have to work on year-round at the Big Ten level, at the highest level of college football. And the game is in great shape. But the reality is they need to keep up with it. There's always people asking for transparency, accountability, and so on. And those are those 50-50 judgment calls. And but outside of those, I thought we had a pretty good year last year. And when I look at the significant areas of replay, targeting, player safety, et cetera, you'll see, and I'll talk a little bit or answer some questions on new rules, but there aren't that many huge, major changes, but there's some significant trying to make the game better. So with that, let us pause and we can have some open dialogue.
Something the Big Ten will be implementing this year as well, or have you guys looked into how defensive substitutions need to happen and how it can be monitored and it will be implemented?
Right. Just so everyone could hear the question, it has to do with substitutions and primarily defensive substitutions. And we've put in some mechanics that are standard mechanics throughout all of college football. I don't care if it's D3 level or D1 level. It's the same. If the offense substitutes, there's a mechanic where we will come up and the head referee will signal that we're substituting. He'll wait 3 seconds, then he'll turn to the defensive team and say, you've got 3 seconds, the clock is going to start your substitution. And once that happens, they have the right to come in, substitute, and that defender has the right to get off the field without being penalized on that. What was said or has been kicked around, and it's standard, the rule has not changed. Right? We don't want to exaggerate or allow a team to move quickly on defense and then at the end of the play walk off the field. That's not in the spirit of the game. So whatever the terms were that was said at other media days, it hasn't really changed, but we're going to monitor that and make sure that we give either a warning or tell the player, you got better get off the field, because once I drop my arms as the referee, that defense is on its own. So the rule hasn't changed, but we haven't had a real problem with that as far as, within the conference, So it hasn't been a big problem. I do review that with the coaches when I go out to the teams, and I say, okay, the rule book doesn't say an athletic pace or anything like that, but they have to substitute in a prompt fashion. It's our judgment, and if we don't agree with that they're gaming the system, if you will, forcing the offense to take a timeout or delay a game, then we'll just drop our arms and he better get off the field or it's going to be on the defense. If they aren't, if they're walking or, they should be able to jog off the field unless they're injured. Then we'd stop it if they're injured, from the last play and try to get them off the field. And we should have seen that before the substitute even came in if that player was injured.
When you talk about transparency, just helping the refs, obviously, because it's easy to blame a ref for a bang-bang call. But like you said, your season starts right after the national championship. How many coaches do you have the chance or even have ventured out, whether it be them or people on the staff, to sit in on the meetings to understand, okay, this is the scrutiny that we put these referees through, and how much does that lead down to even teaching, the student athletes, hey, this is what the job of ref is, and here's how. Like it's not as easy as it seems when you make it.
Yeah, I think, Media Days is a great opportunity for us to explain what the rules are, what the points of emphasis are, and what we do to get ready for the season. And I think that it isn't just during the off season and how do we get those teams ready, but the reality is during the season, the coaches have a chance to send plays to me after, within 24 hours of the game, they send me those plays in. And the original question was transparency. Well, I think we have a lot of transparency because all of our games are on television. Everyone sees all the angles that pretty much that we see, even in replay. TV does an unbelievable job capturing the right angles, and they'll comment on it, but they pretty much get to the answer, the right angle, high end zone, the foot's out of bounds, and they show it to everybody. So everyone, my fans, whether they like the call or not, they see, there's transparency. They see the real stuff. Now, are they asking me, is that a right or wrong call? When it goes to replay, they pretty much get that call correct, right? I mean, there's some 50-50 calls we might not overturn because it's not indisputable, and some of it's judgment calls. So there's transparency there, and then of course transparency is followed by my training in the off season. I bring coaches in. We just had 3 coaches came in from the outside to help us train my officials to understand philosophies, stemming, what's the right proper procedure, what are they doing on at the top of the route for pass interference and so on. So we go through all that from transparency to training to implementing that and accountability, because if they don't get it right throughout the season enough, they won't be back. So we're looking for the best officials anywhere in the country. I don't care from what conference they're in, where they live, especially with being a coast-to-coast conference, we have that opportunity to do that. So I think that there is transparency, there's accountability from that standpoint, but I will, after this meeting today, I'll start making my rounds to a handful of schools within the Big Ten, or if I can't make it, a head referee will go there, and they'll go there for 2 or 3 days for a camp. So all the schools will get a full crew coming in, doing practices for 2 days, staying overnight, addressing the team. Here are the points of emphasis. Sitting with the coaching staff. Here's what we've told last week to our officials, so they know exactly what the message is. And then during the season, after week 1, I'll make a training tape. Here are half a dozen to a dozen plays that happened in week 1, and here's the good calls, the incorrect calls, and here's what we're doing to correct that. And that's the communication throughout the season. Don't put it out there for all media consumption, but it goes to the coach, every team, head coach, and their coaching staff.
Do they take it, because obviously, clearly stated, accountability on the side of the referees, do the coaches do their part in being more accountable and active in that learning process as well?
I really think so. I mean, let's just take my most controversial call, targeting, right? We had 52 targeting calls called during the season in the Big Ten last year. Well, only 32% of those calls got enforced, right? 17 of them got enforced after said and done. And what I like about that, to your question, is those are coaches that are coaching the players, telling the players, head up, wrap up, and try to get that head to the side. That's coaching. They get the credit. That's why we have less problems with targeting, less injuries because of targeting, because of the coaches. Now, are we getting a little bit better on the field calling it? Yeah. You go back 5 years, we were throwing the flag, anything close, trying to protect the players. But now we don't have to throw it as often, right? We still have to protect the players, but the coaches have done a good job. They've put us in a good position. It's a big collision, but you know what? They did everything right. Head up, they could see their opponent. They don't have their head down. That's dangerous. But if he's defenseless, he better keep his head up and put the head to the side so you don't hit him in the neck or head area.
When you see a targeted call like live, does the stomach acid get going a little bit because you know it's not necessarily going to be effective right now?
If I was on the field, I go, yeah. My blood pressure would go right up. And I've had, as a referee in the NFL or Big Ten, when I see a quarterback get hit in the head, a high hit, a blindside shot, I get nervous, right? I mean, first of all, is the player injured? Second of all, was it a legal hit? And so on. And they happen pretty fast. So from that standpoint, the blood pressure, the adrenaline goes up, the antennas go up, but if you do the right mechanics and you go through the process on the play, and it's a receiver going over the middle, and the ball is thrown up to him, or it's one-on-one. You might know where the ball is going, but certainly when the ball's in the air, we start off with man, go to zone, and then come back to the man. So we have at least a couple sets of eyes on those types of plays, the quarterback or a receiver downfield, as two examples. So, yeah, and I'm sitting in the command center watching these plays. I go, oh boy, this is going to be close. And of course he's on the ground. That could be a problem, right? Not all the time, but usually I'm looking, did he get it in the head? Anytime we have a major injury where they have to carry him off the field, I want to see what happened on that play. I want to see why did he. It's usually a lower extremity, but it could, in this case, if it's a headshot, I got to look really close. And of course, whether it's the replay people at the stadium or the backup in Rosemont, Illinois, in our command center, replay command center, they're looking at it, overseeing it, and if they are slow at stopping that play, or it looks like the coach is going to challenge it, then we'll go right into action, and Rosemont would stop that play to take a close look at it and verify it's a clean hit. It's not targeting, or it's a late hit. Might still enforce 15-yard penalty, but it might not meet to the standard of targeting. Just a little bit louder, please.
I'm curious if you've seen in the advent of more sports betting and more mainstream sports betting, fans maybe disagreeing with college and using that to increase the scrutiny on if you've seen that sort of thing.
My officials and myself included, we've been cheered by thousands but booed by millions, way before betting. But it's usually the losing team or whatever team that call goes against. So from that standpoint, we don't get too involved. But I'll tell you what, the Big Ten Conference goes to unbelievable lengths to find out who's in Las Vegas, if the sporting betting line has moved. Our officials don't get involved. We don't look. We don't go on social media. We don't allow them to go on social media for posting anything from last week's game or this quarterback looked like he got injured. We don't put anything out there. Okay, but yes, gambling is legal in this country now, and you can gamble on your phone. You can gamble. In most states, I don't know what the number is, 37, almost 40 states out of, all the states across the country. So it's legal, but it's not for our officials. It's not legal to come here during the season. They have to get permission if they come to any game. But the problem is they don't have to go to Las Vegas or Boardwalk in New Jersey, or they can do it on their phone. So we have put a lot of checks and balances in that. That's the biggest thing. I don't worry about pass interference or targeting call or getting I don't like any mistakes. I hate them, right? But my biggest fear is the credibility of our officials, the integrity of the game. We're there to uphold the integrity of this game. And you look at other sports, I won't name names, but whether it's baseball, tennis, every sport out there, there are issues of players, coaches, sometimes officials, umpire, whatever it might be, involved in gambling. That's my biggest fear. So we go to great lengths checking out backgrounds. Anybody that works a Big Ten game, they're knocking on their neighbor's door. They're doing deep, not driver's test or driver's license. Did they get a speeding ticket, this and that? We go through their financials and we look at what they're doing, what they do at the office, what they do at home, what they do in the neighborhood, what bars they go to, all that stuff. It's worth it. This is my 17th year. We've had really good luck, but it only takes one person. That's my biggest fear when it comes to that, as far as being the leader of officials. And I love my guys. I've hired almost all of them now after 17 years. I might have one or two that when I came in, 08, 09, they're still on the staff. So it's turned over. So I brought them in. Do I make mistakes? Sure. But getting the right people, they have to have capability to get to the Big Ten. They have to continue to improve. But more importantly, they have to have the right character. And I make mistakes, and it sorts itself out. My officials make mistakes, bad judgment. But the reality, if I can get those three things there, we're going to have a pretty good staff. Yeah, we've talked about it. I don't think it's a bad idea, but I also think that all those, not at all, a lot of important calls happen in last part of the game, right? Because there's not much time to make up for it. If we miss a first down and we give them it's 3rd inches versus a first down, if we didn't change that, they got the whole game. They got another 150 plays to play and probably don't have to blame the spot, right? But down the stretch, that's why we have replay, But I think like the NBA started the 2-minute report, and you'd have to check with them. It's probably not used that often. It was a little bit of, I would say probably PR, but kind of coming more to the middle with the fans and other people complaining. And basketball, their eyes are a little bit closer to the field than football. So football, I mean, if it's a rule, if I gave a team 5 downs or whatever it might be, people would know that. But basketball, they kind of have their own opinion because they're right there and they can see it a little bit closer, where they may not see everything on football because we're a long ways away. But they'll see it eventually because the cameras, the replay, and so on. So I think that, we're in a pretty good position with television and everything else, and we'll make some mistakes, but the reality is we communicate those questions, whether it's 2 minutes or 5 minutes or beginning of the game, to the coaches in writing. They might have a half a dozen questions, maybe 10 if we didn't have a really good game or the coaches just had a lot of questions. But we put it all in writing to the teams, the coaches and the AD get that. Then as I said, I put it on a training tape, the most controversial plays, and say, we kicked this call. We felt that this grab was not enough to slow down that receiver, or this hold wasn't quite enough at the point of attack that we took a step away. So we try to explain that. Do I put it out to the fans? Quite frankly, I just don't have time to do that, But if we make a mistake on the clock, the down, something germane to the rules of the game, we'll probably put a statement out if it's critical to the game.
Bill, to dovetail off that point, when you talk to coaches, how much of your communication with them is, hey, we have an issue, whether it's in a game that was just played or an overall rules issue, talk to me. Okay, Brett Bielema today was asked about kind of being a social media warrior when it comes to defending himself in his program. How much of that communication with you and the coaches is, if we have an issue, you have multiple avenues to contact me, you have my number, let's do it one-on-one, let's not do it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we'd like, but they're human too. And they get upset, and they're going to the press conference, and they aren't supposed to call me between the locker room and the press conference, but some do. And I said, okay, I thought we said 24 hours, and now we got less than 24 minutes after the game. But I tell them, take a deep breath, because the video might show something different. So if I can get to them, great. Sometimes we have, staff people at the game and they're monitoring it. They aren't telling the coaches what to say. But let me say this, as I said earlier, this is my 17th season. Coaches have all changed. Although I know Brett Bielema, in your example, he started a long time ago and he was at Wisconsin. Then he went to Arkansas and comes back. So from that standpoint, I know some of the coaches over the years, whether it's NFL people coming back or just being around. And my job is to develop a rapport, earn their respect. Hopefully they'll earn my respect. It's a two-way street. Respect each other. But I get it. Under pressure, they might say some things. And that's something for the conference office to address, not to embarrass the league, embarrass the officials, because they know if someone makes a huge mistake and they're mad about it after the game, they know there's accountability. I won't announce it to the media, but by the way, you won't be working next week, or it's 2 weeks off, or whatever it is. Just because you made a judgment mistake, that's one thing. But if it's something that is really basic and it had an impact on the game and you gave them one on-time down and the game should have been over and they win the game, the wrong team wins, okay, there's some accountability for that. I don't like announcing it, but if someone gets suspended or a crew gets suspended, and that has not happened too often, we usually put a statement out on that. But just because you missed a pass interference, I'm not interested in judgment calls and hanging the officials. No, don't make that same mistake multiple times, because you won't see week 14. You might have just ended your career, and they know that. So they feel the pressure. We're all human. Like I said, I make mistakes just like they do, just like the players, just like the coaches. Yeah. Well, if you take a look at what's going on in the Big Ten, there's so many good teams, so many good rivalries. Our antennas are up on every single game. And so whether it's that game or anything else, but certain games, we will have Zoom calls with the AD, the coaches, the officials before the game to get ready, because we think there was trouble last year, there's a good chance there's payback this year, right? And these are kids, and I look at a lot of seniors, and they don't care, whatever their next game might be. And they're kids. They're 18 to 20-year-old people that make mistakes. So we do prepare for our biggest games, but they all do that. And before the game, they have a 100-minute meeting, and they talk about if bench is empty, and how do we clear the field, and what do we do? Whether it's, and some of it's for bomb threats or threats to the stadium, the stadium itself. But the reality is, I really focus on how we're going to handle a situation where there's bad blood between the teams or the coaches, and someone says something, poster board information, we're going to kick their butts. Well, there might be a fight later that game, and the game's over, and if it's lopsided, we have problems. So we prepare for the worst and hope that things, are under control. And that's why we get the coaches, that's why we get the athletic directors on a call with us before that game.
You mentioned not all accountability is just required, but are there any officials that you did not ask back? And how often does that happen? What's an average number?
Yeah, I would say I generally look at about 7 or 8% turnover in the staff each year, and that includes replay. So I would say if there's a handful of people, 5 or 6 people, maybe 7 people, a couple are going to retire. It might be planned. A couple will be on performance, poor performance. So they might not be in a crew in the Big Ten. They could get only partial schedule, or they could go to the MAC or Valley. And then where I'm most proud, if I can get 2 or 3 people to get into the NFL, and that, because they've done a really nice job, whether it's 2 or 3 on the field and a couple in replay, that's a good year. So that's how I get to 7, 8 people. And people get to the point, and if they manage their career and they know what they want to do, and they want to step off the field at a certain age or a certain time, whether they retire or maybe do something on my staff administratively, that would be something good, that we would communicate that, work through it. I need assistance. We bring in people all the time, whether I bring them in off the field from the Big Ten, or I go to the NFL and bring them back to the Big Ten. And we're doing quite a bit of that today.
One of the big changes to rules this year has to do with players faking injuries. How much of an issue have you seen with that in the Big Ten in the past, and can you sort of explain how that rule is changing this year and what that is going to look like?
Yeah, good question on feigning or faking injuries. Usually it's on the defense, but we've seen a couple plays on the offense when they weren't ready to snap it, and the clock is going, and running back takes a flop. So I have about 6 or 8 plays that I'm making the rounds of the coaches, and I'm sending them to the teams. I want you to look at this play, because I'm going to come in and talk to your team about that. But the new rule says once the official places the ball down and it's ready for play, the offense can snap it whenever they want. Once we put that ball down, if that injury occurs after the ball is clearly placed on the ground, it's going to be a timeout on that team, because he's taking a flop, he's not ready. And usually what they're doing, as you all know, they're trying to slow down the offense, right? They want to get that big lineman out, or a nickel defense in, so they can cover that third and 5 or whatever it's going to be. If it's 3rd and 1, they might bring the big guys in. So, but if we see there's an injury after the play and we stop it, even though we're in the process of putting the ball down, it's on us. It's just a normal timeout. We recognize, refer, bring out the training crew, and have them administer, to that injured player. But once it's down, it's a timeout, and timeouts are valuable. And if they don't have any timeouts left, then it's a 5-yard penalty. So, whether going back to the original question on substitutions, those linemen can stem, they can move all over, and then when they are substituted for, they walk off the field, trying to game it a little bit. That's a problem. And then you'll see these players, and we have video after the play, and now the offense is going to go quick to catch them on a certain defense scheme, and they'll look to the sideline, and Coach, yeah, go down, go. I mean, it's pretty obvious, unethical in my opinion. And we've talked to the coaches. Not a big problem in the Big Ten. And I oversee a bunch of conferences. A couple teams here and there do it strategically. They try to do it smart. Look like, well, he was injured on the play. But the reality is every team has it, but the Big Ten teams, coaches really do a good job in that. Otherwise, we're picking up the phone and calling them. I said, I've just looked at this thing. He wasn't injured the play before. He didn't get hit even this play, and now he's down. So we try to bring it to their attention. I said, don't do that. Well, I mean, the feigning injury has been in the rule book, right? And we write it up and we send it in and we call the athletic director, we call the coach and make it a big deal, right? And if it continues, if we have to call you again, there could be additional restrictions to that player, to that team, et cetera. And that's at the commissioner level. But we get involved in that. But I'll be honest with you, we just haven't had those conversations the last several years under Tony Petitti, and that's a good thing, right? So they aren't doing it, but I just know all teams have, they know, they're smart enough to say, take a dive. They go down and they saved themselves a substitution and so on. There are certain conferences that do it a lot, and that's what got national attention. And we train our officials, but I go back to recognize and refer. We're not doctors. So the reality is, and we have them wearing clear eye shields. Now, they can apply for a slightly tinted one that has to be approved before the season. They have to be in before June 1st. So some teams might have those slightly tinted. And the reason we have that is not just because we don't want them to look cool or something or sunlight, because we got to look in their eyes and determine, does he know what I'm asking him? Does he know what day it is, where we're at? And if he can't look in his eyes and if he's rolling, he probably got dinged in the head. We want him out of there. And that's, like I say, we're not doctors, but we can at least, err on that side of safety. They don't have to take a timeout. We send him out for one play, but he should be looked at by the doctor there on the sideline.
Last year, the mid-season, the rule changed with the 12 men. How did that come about? What does that show about the Big Ten and the malleability?
Well, a lot of these rule changes have to do with Big Ten teams that are happening, whether it's lining up a tight end over, on a line of scrimmage on a fake punt or something like that, whether it's the T formation, I'm not going to return the ball. I mean, that came out of one of our Big Ten games, and that under 2 minutes playing with 12 players used to be just a 5-yard penalty on that. But now, because there was Ohio State-Oregon game, we didn't wait to midseason. We did it immediately once that happened, and that was a play that we didn't really think through that, and they gained an advantage. And because we want to make the game safe for the players, and we wanted it to be very fair for the players, and for both sides. And that, to us, said there's a little loophole in that, playing with 12 and confusing the offense and all that stuff. So we put it in there, but we didn't wait for this year for the rules changes. We said we're going to implement that now, and it wasn't a Big Ten rule, because if we implement something, we ask the NCAA to take a look at this and make a change right now, and they agreed this is an unfair advantage, and we made that change on the spot. Usually we don't do that. Good idea, let's wait till next year. We're playing the season. But the reality is we had to take action there, and I was all for that.
Is that the first time that's happened? Mid-season?
No, I think there was one other one that we did on a clock situation. I think on a kickoff, free kick, the clock didn't start. This goes back a few years. And just think about it. It used to be, the rule said, let's say there's 30 seconds left and I'm going to kick off. Well, when you kick the ball, it's a live ball. And the rule book said during live balls, the clock starts, just like a snap live ball. So what happened? They kicked the ball off 3 times out of bounds. 5 seconds, another 5 seconds, all pretty long, but out of bounds, and you're just wiping out all the time. And yeah, they were penalized 5 yards. So when they game the system, boom, we have to step in and say, okay, that's enough of that.
Ask you about 2 Penn State plays you may not remember, but drew some social media reaction. The first one, Penn State, Ohio State. Penn State defensive back came sliding in to basically stop Ohio State ball carrier Elliot Wallace stepped over it and drew a 15-yard personal foul. Drew a lot of social media reactions from all over the place. One side of the coin being, where else are you going to go and stuff? But the other side of the coin being, it seems to be a pretty clear cut rule. So I don't know if you remember that play.
I remember it. Remember it quite well, and didn't really get a whole lot of pushback on it, at least from the teams involved. I mean, they handled it properly. They asked about, tell me why this is a 15-yard penalty on my defensive player coming in. And it wasn't a late hit or anything like that. It was the way he tried to embarrass his opponent by stepping over him. And you just can't do that. To drag yourself over the top of him, you're embarrassing. It's not any respect for your opponent, respect for the game. I was really happy we flagged it. Yeah, where's he supposed to go? He could roll. He just, guys know what they're doing out there, right? And they just pretend like, oh, I'm going to just get up over on top of him. And, it's in our judgment. The game is at the highest level, and we've got great character in the game. We don't want to take a step down, and this is not a Bush League. Right? This is the Big Ten. This is the highest level of college football. It's as good or as big as the NFL, in my opinion. And it's a great game, and we just want to clean that up. That's why we have uniforms, tuck it in, do this, do that. And, we're looking for a quality presentation from that standpoint. And if the players' behavior, they know what's right and wrong. It starts with that. You allow that. It starts fights. Then they start brandishing weapons. We didn't think about that a couple years ago. Now we're six-shooter. I mean, some of it's in the rule book, but the reality is we want to clean those things up. Unsportsmanlike conduct has always been a point of emphasis.
Bill, was the citrus bowl enlightening in the sense of trying to close some loopholes, because it seemed like that game specifically had several.
And give me an example, what you're looking.
Bar on the kickoff return.
Yeah.
That was
Well, that clearly brought the rule change.
And then I'll go back again to the defensive substitution, where Brett knew that's not a Big Ten crew. I might be able to gain the system in that regard. Personally, because there doesn't seem to be uniformity in that regard about how to handle that situation. Because I think he said this, if it was a Big Ten crew, he knew what he was going to be able to do and what he wasn't
Right.
going to be able to do in that regard.
Yeah. Our rules are not just Big Ten rules. Our rules are not for the SEC or ACC or Big 12 or whatever it might be. Everybody, whether I agree or disagree with the rule, I tell our officials, we're doing what CFO, NCAA, CFP in playoffs, we're doing it this way. Everyone has to be consistent. We want consistency on the first play of the game and the last play of the game if it's holding. We want consistency in September. We want that same thing called in November or December, right? Postseason, et cetera. And every conference, and I've got a lot of presentations, the first slide always says one CFO, which means every conference better do it the same way. And if they don't, we've got people in leadership positions, not so much myself, but Steve Shaw, the national coordinator, Dean Blandino, national coordinator of replay. They're the spokesperson, and they will pick up the phone and say, we want it done one. How can these coaches coach? How can the players know, right? Everyone does it differently. So a lot of those things that happened in the game drove rule changes, so.
The biggest challenge in assimilating that
Assimilating? What's the biggest challenge? Well, I'm a selfish guy. I'm greedy. I want the best officials in the country, and we're getting them. And if you took note, before the Pac-12 dissolved or got broken up down to 2 teams, 12 months before that, I hired, in my opinion, the top officials from the Pac-12. I had a feeling that we already had some things going with LA area, right? USC and UCLA. I didn't know, I wasn't in a position, only the commissioner knew what we're going to do, if any more expansion. But I had a feeling I'm going to get the best guys, and I needed to do it now. So I did it 1 year in advance. It cost my officials, 1/10 of their salary, because I brought extra people in, and I didn't need them until Washington and Oregon came in. But that's forward thinking. I got a little bit lucky. I'm trying to bring as many as I can in for coverage, because I need to have officials to work, spring football, August football. But once the season starts, my guys can't work during the season. They can't go to the local Big Ten school and work practices because they're going to have them during the season. So I have to have other officials, lower level guys that are available, not working Big Ten. So we did what we could do to bring people in. I just can't hire everybody from 100 guys from the Pac-12, but we did take the top 10%. I can promise you that. Well, they've been in for 2 seasons now, and a lot of them have worked, almost all of them have worked postseason, and a lot of them worked the CFP. And a couple of them, their first year, worked the Big Ten championship, and they're competing with, 15 other people at their position. So they rose to the level, so I get lucky once in a while, But, we have enough video, enough experience looking at these people, and I go to a lot of camps and clinics, so I have a pretty good feel for who's on people's short lists and what they want to do. And I didn't go recruit those guys. They came to me once they knew that, we were expanding. And go ahead.
You talked about the fake injuries thing. Can you just, I'm sure there's, I think we're running out of time, but can you give us kind of a very quick rundown of some of the other points of emphasis, like not rule changes this year, other than that people should be aware of and maybe watching for this fall?
Well, a couple of them are disguised a little bit. Their special teams plays and its formations and what they can and can't do. If you go back to the Notre Dame play with on a special teams play, they could try to take a fake field goal or kick, and we put a rule change in that. So things happen, and we have to make those rule changes. But those formations are legal. But if they don't have 5 players 50 through 79, it's going to be an illegal formation if they snap the ball. And you can't have anybody in between the snapper and the holder or snapper and the punter. And even if it's on an angle, you have to have a direct path to the ball from the snapper to the holder. So there's a few things. I don't think fans will really notice it, but they'll come up with a 5-yard penalty. The only other thing is you won't hear the officials announce after further review the play is confirmed or stands. We spent too much time reviewing a play, taking an extra 15 seconds. We know we're not going to change it. There's no video evidence to change the play. But then we said, well, should we confirm it or should we let it stand? Which means the same thing. We're not changing it. So the ruling in the field is incomplete. It's going to stay incomplete. So we did it for efficiency. The NFL is trying to go that route too. So after further review, the ruling in the field is upheld. So that's the word, because media people, TV people would say, how did they confirm that? Why didn't they just or why was it stands? The ball hit the ground, Why have extra reasons why to complain about the calls, right? So it's just going to be, the ruling in the field upheld. End of story.
From youth football to this level you're at and everywhere in between, no one's team folds and everyone's team gets away from holding, basically. That's all. Fans complain about that a lot. So I'm curious, from a Big Ten perspective, how do you feel like your officials call that particular penalty? And is there anything fans maybe think they see that they're missing when they complain about either a lack of holding for their team or that their team is being called for it?
All right, well, it's a really good question. False starts are number 1 flag. The number 2 flag is holding. So we do call holding. Second most of all penalties in the book. And we take a look at the Big Ten, and I attribute this to the coaches also, and our ability to train people at the highest level. What do we want for holding? People say that every play there's holding. People say you could call it every play. We have 181 plays in a college game. Do you want us to call 50 holding calls or 100 some holding calls? No. So you have to use judgment when it comes to that, okay? And I think we do a pretty good job using common sense. If it's at the point of attack and it's enough and he takes away a step, not just stretches the jersey, probably don't want that called. But if it's a wide receiver going down the field and he stretches his jersey, he probably slowed him up just slightly, or if the ball's in the air, that little tug might be enough to draw a flag for pass interference or defensive holding. So it's experience and knowing what to call and not call. He doesn't have to go down, but if you twist and turn him and let this running back get through, we want that called. So we track all the fouls. Big Ten average 13.1 fouls per game. The national average, 14.1 fouls per game, right? So we're a little bit under the average. Coaches don't want a lot of calls. They know. I said, okay, you send me a lot of questions on holding. The reality is I can give you 5 more holding calls every single game if that's what you want. You want interruptions? You want penalties? I'm working on pre-snap fouls. 41% of our flags happen before we snap the ball. Come on. You guys are Division I athletes. We should be able to get snap before with a clean snap. But we have 40+% with fouls. So we're working on that to try to clean up the line of scrimmage to make the game, cleaner. better for the fans, better for the coaches, better for the players.
Bill, Penn State's going through a significant upgrade of the stadium. Will that impact officiating in any way? Ingress, egress, replay? They tore down the press box. The officials, I assume, are going to be, the replay guys going to be somewhere else, or however that works.
Well, replay guys would be up there. I'm not sure if they're moving our box. I haven't been notified that, so I don't think the replay box would change. And of course, that replay box is connected to myself in Chicago, in a replay center that we oversee all those replays. But having more fans, yeah, it might be louder, and it's pretty loud already, right? But when they get on the field, not that big of a deal to the officials. They're
They actually tore the press box down. It's not going to be there.
okay.
Everybody else is going to be in a different spot.
Okay.
I guess I'm getting it from left field. I apologize.
Yeah, I mean, when you're on the field, I think if it's your first game at Penn State, or Michigan, or 100,000 fans, and you're coming from the Mid-American Conference or another, your first game, you might be intimidated by it a little bit. That's why we get those people out there for scrimmages and camps on campus. Now, there's not 100,000 people there. Nebraska has the same thing. There's just a lot of people out there making noise. But the reality is, they should, by the time they get to the Big Ten, they've got a dozen plus years of experience at the college level, and they've earned that spot. Whether it's a guy or a gal, if I put them out there, they've earned that opportunity to work that game.
That's all the time we have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks. Okay.